You know what is genuinely wild about retirement in Australia right now? There are towns in this country where you can buy a solid 3-bedroom house for less than the price of a new Toyota Hilux. Towns where the median house price is under $100,000. Towns where your pension covers everything, and I mean everything, and you still have money left at the end of the fortnight. Nobody talks about these places because they are not on the coast, they are not near a capital city, and the real estate industry makes no money promoting them. But they exist, and some of them are genuinely extraordinary. Australia has over 15,000 small towns scattered across 7.7 million square kilometers. Most are shrinking. Most have houses sitting empty. And in a country where the median house price just crossed $900,000, that means there are places where retirees on the full-aged pension can own their home outright, cover every bill, eat well, and still put money away. I spent months researching council records, checking median sale prices through CoreLogic and Domain, contacting local real estate agents, and talking to retirees who actually made the move. And number 3 on this list genuinely surprised me because it has a hospital, an airport, and houses under $150,000. 12 towns, ranked from most remote to most livable. Starting now. At number 12, Norseman in Western Australia. Population approximately 650. About 720 kilometers from Perth, roughly 7.5 hours drive. Median house prices sit between $30,000 and $70,000. Here is what makes Norseman genuinely interesting. This is the last town before the Nullarbor. It was founded in 1894 after a horse called Hardy Norseman reportedly kicked up a gold nugget. The town still has a general store, a roadhouse, a medical clinic with visiting GP services, and a community that looks after its own. You hear the wind rolling off the salt flats, kookaburras in the morning, the occasional road train heading east. No traffic lights, no parking meters. I spoke with a retired truck driver in his late 60s who moved from Perth 4 years ago. He bought his 3-bedroom weatherboard for $42,000. Council rates run about $1,200 a year. His total monthly expenses come to around $900. His pension is more than enough. He told me he wakes up, makes a coffee on the veranda, and nobody asks him for anything. That is what freedom actually feels like, he said. The trade-off is isolation. The nearest major hospital is in Esperance, roughly 200 kilometers south. Entertainment is what you make of it. But for retirees who want complete financial independence and silence, Norseman delivers without apology. A gold rush town that outlived the gold and still has not learned to charge city prices. At number 11, Coober Pedy in South Australia. Population approximately 1,700. About 845 kilometers from Adelaide, roughly 8.5 hours drive. Median house prices range from $60,000 to $120,000, with underground dugout homes at the lower end. Here is what makes Coober Pedy genuinely unlike anywhere else on Earth. People live underground. They have since opal miners discovered in 1915 that carving homes into sandstone kept temperatures at a constant 23 degrees while the surface hit 50. Churches, hotels, and homes are carved into rock. There is a hospital, a supermarket, police station, and an 18-hole golf course with no grass. You play on oiled sand greens. You hear generators humming, the occasional blast from a mine, and the silence of the desert pressing in from every direction. Not much else. I talked to a retired couple in their mid-70s who moved from Adelaide 12 years ago. They bought a 3-bedroom dugout for $85,000. No heating bill, no cooling bill. The Rock does everything. Monthly costs come to about $1,000 total on the combined pension. She said it took 3 months to stop missing the city and 6 months to dread ever going back. The trade-off is remoteness and summer heat that is genuinely dangerous above ground. But for retirees seeking something completely different, a home carved into ancient stone where temperature is perfect year-round, Coober Pedy is not a gimmick. They filmed Mad Max here for a reason. At number 10, Zeehan in Tasmania. Population approximately 700, roughly 300 kilometers from Hobart, about 4.5 hours drive. Median house prices range between $90,000 and $150,000. Here is what you need to understand about Zeehan. In 1900, this was the 3rd largest town in Tasmania. Population over 8,000. It had its own school of mines, and the Gaiety Theatre was one of the finest venues in the Southern Hemisphere. Silver and lead mining built a grand town that peaked around the turn of the century, then slowly hollowed out. What remains is heritage architecture that would cost millions near any city. I spoke with a retired teacher in his late 60s who moved from Melbourne 8 years ago. He bought a 3-bedroom cottage for $110,000. He said the first time he walked down the main street and saw the Gaiety Theatre facade, he felt like he had stepped back in time. His pension covers everything with room to spare. The trade-off is weather. The west coast of Tasmania is genuinely wet, 200-plus rain days a year. But for retirees who love heritage and cool climate, Zeehan is a Victorian-era town preserved entirely by the fact that nobody could afford afford to knock it down. At number 9, Lightning Ridge in New South Wales. Population approximately 2,500, though nobody is entirely sure because plenty of people prefer not to be counted. About 770 kilometers from Sydney, roughly 9 hours drive. Median house prices between $80,000 and $180,000. Here's the thing about Lightning Ridge that most coverage misses. This is not just an opal mining town. It is an alternative community that accidentally became one of the most affordable retirement options in New South Wales. People build extraordinary things from scrap metal. There are underground art galleries, a castle made from car parts, and free hot artesian baths every day of the year. The hot baths deserve special mention because pensioners with arthritis sit in naturally heated mineral water every morning. That is a genuine medical benefit you cannot buy in Sydney. I talked to a retired nurse in her early 60s who moved from Newcastle 5 years ago. She bought a 2-bedroom for $95,000. Monthly costs about $1,100. She said the community is eccentric, generous, and entirely unconcerned with appearances. She genuinely has never been healthier because she walks everywhere and soaks in the baths daily. The trade-off is heat. Summer regularly exceeds 40 degrees. Medical services are limited, but for retirees who want affordability, community, natural hot springs, and a town that genuinely does not care what you did before you arrived, Lightning Ridge is Australia's most democratic retirement option, a town built by people who decided the rules did not apply to them. At number 8, Charters Towers in Queensland. Population approximately 8,000. It is 135 kilometers from Townsville, roughly 90 minutes drive. Median house prices range between $150,000 and $250,000. Here is what makes Charters Towers genuinely remarkable for pension planning. It has everything: a hospital with emergency department, multiple GP clinics, supermarkets, a cinema, heritage streetscapes that rival any southern Victorian town. This was Queensland's second largest city during the 1890s gold rush, with over 30,000 people and its own stock exchange. The gold ran out, but the buildings remained. I spoke with a retired accountant in his early 70s who moved from Brisbane 6 years ago. He bought a renovated 4-bedroom Queenslander for $210,000. In Brisbane, that house would be $1.2 million, he said. His combined pension with his wife covers everything, and they save roughly $500 a month. He told me the thing nobody tells you about Charters Towers is that it has a functioning community. The RSL is packed on Friday nights. There is a real social life that does not require spending money. The trade-off is the heat. Summer is tropical Queensland summer. But for retirees wanting heritage, community services, and affordability in a town that actually works as a town, Charters Towers is the closest thing to a complete retirement package on this list so far. A gold rush city that kept its grandeur and lost its prices. At number 7, Queenstown in Tasmania. Population approximately 1,800. It is 255 kilometers from Hobart, around 3.5 hours drive. Median house prices between $100,000 and $180,000. Here is what makes Queenstown genuinely surreal. The landscape looks like another planet. Over a century of copper smelting strips surrounding hills bare. The rock has oxidized into bands of orange, pink, purple, and gray, simultaneously devastating and beautiful. The town itself sits in a valley with heritage buildings from the early 1900s lining Orr Street. The West Coast Wilderness Railway runs through temperate rainforest to Zeehan. It is one of the great train journeys in Australia. I spoke with an artist in her early 50s who moved from Melbourne 10 years ago. She bought a 4-bedroom weatherboard for $115,000. She told me the light is unlike anywhere else in Australia because of the bare hills reflecting it. Monthly costs about $1,200. She said she genuinely cannot understand why more people have not discovered this place. There is a hospital. There are supermarkets. Cradle Mountain is 90 minutes north. Zeehan is 40 minutes west. A pension covers living costs comfortably. The trade-off is weather and remoteness from specialists. The rain is relentless in winter. Some find the denuded landscape confronting. But for retirees who want dramatic scenery and a home they can own outright, Queenstown is a mining town that accidentally became one of Tasmania's most affordable and visually extraordinary places to live, preserved by remoteness and economics rather than design. At number 6, Burra in South Australia. Population approximately 1,100, about 160 kilometers from Adelaide, roughly 2 hours drive. Median house prices between $130,000 and $250,000. Here is what makes Burra genuinely special. It has what most affordable towns lack: heritage beauty combined with proximity to a capital city. 2 hours from Adelaide means specialist appointments and family visits are manageable. Burra was established in 1845 when the Monster Mine became one of the largest copper mines in the world. Cornish and Welsh miners built stone cottages that still stand today. The National Trust classifies the entire town as heritage. You hear the creek running through the center after rain. Heritage cottages have walls half a meter thick, no air conditioning needed. I talked to a retired couple in their mid-70s who sold their Adelaide house and bought a 4-bedroom stone cottage for $210,000. They banked the considerable difference. Monthly expenses about $1,400 combined. Their pension covers everything. The husband said they should have done it 10 years earlier. The trade-off is limited entertainment and basic medical services. 1 supermarket, 1 pub. But for retirees who value heritage architecture and a manageable drive to Adelaide, Burra is a town the copper miners built from stone so solid it is still standing 180 years later, and still affordable because South Australia has never learned to overcharge. At number 5, Tenterfield in New South Wales. Population approximately 3,500, about 700 kilometers from Sydney but only 90 minutes from the Gold Coast. Median house prices between $200,000 and $350,000, with older homes at the lower end. Here is the thing about Tenterfield. This is where Australian Federation was born. On October 24, 1889, Sir Henry Parkes delivered his famous oration at the School of Arts. The building still stands, but what makes it genuinely relevant for retirees is the combination of heritage, altitude climate, and border proximity. Tenterfield sits at roughly 800 meters elevation, 4 distinct seasons, cool winters, warm summers without coastal humidity. The autumn colors are among the best in Australia. You hear the creak, wind through century-old elms, and the sound of a town that still closes for lunch on Wednesday. Genuinely. The saddlery made famous by Peter Allen's grandfather is still on the main street. I spoke with a UK pensioner who moved there 3 years ago. She is 68. She researched every affordable country town in New South Wales, and Tenterfield won on balance of beauty, services, climate, and price. She bought a cottage for $230,000. Her UK pension converts to more than enough. She said the community welcomed her immediately. The CWA, the Historical Society, the Garden Club, more social activity than 20 years in Manchester. Monthly costs about $1,300 for a single. The trade-off is distance from Sydney and limited specialist medical access. But for retirees wanting 4 seasons, Federation heritage, and a genuine main street, Tenterfield is the town that started a nation and then quietly got on with being a genuinely good place to live. At number 4, Glen Innes in New South Wales. Population approximately 6,000, about 600 kilometers from Sydney and roughly 3 hours from the Gold Coast. Median house prices between $220,000 and $350,000. Here is what makes Glen Innes genuinely underrated. This is a proper town. 3 supermarkets, a hospital with emergency department, multiple GP clinics, a swimming pool, a library, sporting clubs, and a main street that functions like main streets used to. The town has strong Celtic heritage. The Australian Standing Stones Monument is impressive. Glen Innes sits at over 1,000 meters elevation, proper winters with frost and occasional snow, stunning autumns with red and gold trees lining every street. I spoke with a retired public servant in his early 70s who moved from Canberra 4 years ago. He bought a renovated 3-bedroom brick home for $260,000. He told me Glen Innes gave him everything the South Coast offered minus the proximity to Sydney, which he said was a feature, not a bug. He volunteers at the library and plays bowls 3 times a week. He said he has a social life he never had in Canberra because in a town this size, if you show up, people actually notice. Monthly outgoings around $1,400 to $1,600 for a single. Pension more than covers it. The trade-off is genuine cold. If you have arthritis or respiratory conditions, the New England winter is no joke. Below 0 regularly June to August. But for retirees who love 4 seasons and want a real town with real services, Glen Innes proves you do not need to compromise on community to live affordably. A Celtic heritage town at 1,000 meters that forgot to become expensive. At number 3, Broken Hill in New South Wales. Population approximately 17,000, about 1,150 kilometers from Sydney, roughly 13 hours drive, but accessible by daily flights from Sydney and Adelaide. Median house prices between $100,000 and $250,000, with livable homes under $150,000. Here is what makes Broken Hill genuinely extraordinary. This is not a tiny, struggling town. This is a regional city with a hospital, an airport, multiple supermarkets, a thriving arts scene, galleries, restaurants, and heritage architecture. The Royal Flying Doctor Service is based here. The School of the Air started here. The Australian labor movement was essentially born here, and houses under $150,000. Broken Hill was established in 1883 when Charles Rasp discovered one of the richest silver-lead-zinc ore bodies on the planet. BHP started in in this town. At its peak, the population exceeded 35,000. The mining wound down, but the town reinvented itself around arts and tourism. Pro Heart painted here. The light is famous among artists. The red earth, the impossibly blue sky, the way the sun hits heritage buildings at golden hour. The light is cinematic. You hear the crows, the wind through heritage verandas, and the particular quiet of a desert city that has more galleries per capita than almost anywhere in the country. No honking, no construction noise, no rush. I talked to a retired teacher in her early 60s who moved from Adelaide 3 years ago. She bought a beautifully renovated miner's cottage with pressed tin ceilings for $135,000. Her pension covers all living costs with $400 to spare each month. She said her quality of life is higher than anything she could have afforded in Adelaide. A good 3-bedroom miner's cottage runs $100,000 to $180,000. Monthly outgoings approximately $1,300 to $1,500 for a single. Pension covers it completely. The trade-off is distance and summer heat. Broken Hill is remote. Summers regularly exceed 40 degrees. Dust storms happen. But for retirees who want arts, a functioning hospital, an airport, and a home for the price of a car, Broken Hill is the most undervalued retirement destination in Australia. A mining city that lost its mines but kept its character, its services, and its extraordinary light. At number 2, Sofala in New South Wales. Population approximately 200, roughly 250 kilometers from Sydney, about 3.5 hours drive. House prices range between $200,000 and $400,000, with some properties under $200,000. Here is what makes Sofala genuinely remarkable. This is the oldest gold rush settlement in Australia. Gold was discovered on the Turon River in 1851, before Ballarat, before Bendigo. At its peak, over 40,000 people camped along the river. 40,000. In a valley that now holds 200. The gold ran out, most left, and what remained was a tiny wooden village frozen at roughly 1860. The Royal Hotel has operated continuously since 1862. The general store has original pressed tin ceilings. The Turon River runs right through town. You hear it from every building on the main street. You hear cockatoos, wind and eucalypts, and occasionally someone's generator kicking in. Not much else. No traffic lights, no plastic signage, no chain stores, no manufactured anything. The absence is the point. This is what Australia looked like before progress decided everything needed upgrading. I spoke with a semi-retired writer in his late 50s who bought a cottage 5 years ago for $220,000. He told me the first time he drove into Sofala, he felt physically lighter. The weight of suburban obligations just stopped. Monthly costs about $1,100. When he qualifies for the pension, he will be wealthy by his own standards. The trade-off is genuine isolation. No supermarket, no medical clinic. Nearest hospital in Bathurst, 40 minutes south. You need a car. You need to be organized. But for retirees who want to live inside the oldest gold rush settlement in Australia, who want to hear the same river the diggers heard in 1851, Sofala is a wooden village on a river of gold that time forgot. And at number 1, Stanley in Tasmania. Population approximately 500. It is 370 kilometers from Hobart, roughly 4.5 hours drive, and about 80 minutes from Burnie. Median house prices between $250,000 and $400,000, with some under $300,000. Here is what makes Stanley genuinely the best hidden retirement town in Australia. Stanley sits at the base of a massive volcanic plug called the Nut, a flat-topped formation that rises 150 meters straight out of the sea, formed roughly 13 million years ago. A chairlift takes you to the top where a circular walking track offers views across Bass Strait that are, and I do not use this word often, breathtaking. The town was established in 1826 by the Van Diemen's Land Company. Highfield House, the original headquarters, still stands with its Georgian architecture perfectly preserved. The main street runs to the harbor where fishing boats work the strait for crayfish and abalone. Heritage cottages line narrow streets. The Plough Inn has been serving since 1844. You hear seagulls, the clank of cray pots being stacked on the wharf, and the wind coming off Bass Strait. The air smells of salt and eucalyptus. No traffic noise, no sirens. Just a fishing village operating the way fishing villages have operated for 2 centuries. Stanley has a medical clinic, cafes, restaurants, and the kind of community where people genuinely know your name within a month. I spoke with a retired couple in their early 70s who moved from Melbourne 7 years ago. They sold their Footscray weatherboard for $780,000 and bought a 3-bedroom heritage cottage 2 streets from the harbor for $270,000. They invested the rest. Their pension plus modest investment income means they live better than they ever did in Melbourne. The wife told me she cries sometimes because she is so happy and angry at herself for not doing it sooner. The morning walk along the harbor, buying crayfish off the wharf for $12, walking home past the Nut with Bass Strait sparkling. She said genuinely nothing in Melbourne came close. Monthly costs about $1,500 for the couple. Seafood at wholesale prices because you buy it off the boat. The husband volunteers with the Historical Society. The wife joined a walking group and book club within the first month. Tourism traffic in summer keeps cafes viable year-round. The nearest hospital is in Burra, about 80 minutes east. Winters are cold and exposed. But here is the thing about Stanley that sets it apart. It has beauty people pay thousands to visit for a weekend. Heritage going back to the earliest days of European settlement. A working harbor with fresh seafood at prices city people cannot believe. Community, services, and houses that retirees on the pension can buy outright. The trade-off is distance and weather. But for retirees who want to wake up every morning at the base of a 13-million-year-old volcanic plug, walk to a harbor, buy crayfish off a boat, and know their pension covers everything, Stanley is not a compromise. It is a genuine upgrade disguised as a sea change. A town at the edge of the world that accidentally became the best place in Australia to retire on the pension alone. So there you have it, 12 Australian towns where the pension is not just enough, it is genuinely comfortable. Where the pace of life your grandparents described, where the butcher knew your name and shops closed on Wednesday afternoon, did not disappear. It just moved to places most people stopped looking. Let me be brutally honest about who this is not for. If you genuinely need constant social stimulation, regular cultural events, and a shopping center within 15 minutes, none of these towns will work long-term. If you need specialist medical care weekly, remoteness is a risk, not a lifestyle choice. If you cannot drive, most require a car. But this is for you if you are tired of renting, tired of watching your pension disappear into someone else's mortgage. If you remember in Australia where ordinary people could own a home and live with dignity on a modest income, that Australia still exists. It is just not where the real estate industry wants you to look. The maths is simple and it is confronting. A Sydney renter on the pension spends roughly $1,600 a month on rent alone before food or bills. After 10 years, they will have paid nearly $200,000 in rent and own nothing. A retiree who buys in Broken Hill for $150,000 or Norseman for $40,000 owns their home outright from day one. Their pension covers everything. After 10 years, they have a home worth something and savings in the bank. Same pension, same income, completely different life, completely different dignity. Have you been to any of these towns? Have you made the move? Comment which town surprised you most, or if you know a hidden affordable town that should have made this list, tell me about it. I genuinely want to hear from people who have done the research. Subscribe for realistic Australian lifestyle content that does not pretend trade-offs do not exist. Every town on this list has downsides, and I told you what they are. That is how this channel works. Like the video, so the algorithm shows this to people actually seeking alternatives to renting forever on the pension. The algorithm responds to that. See you in the next one.